I'm Irma Boom. I'm a book designer working and living in Amsterdam. I wanted to be an artist, a painter. So I went to art school to become this painter. I had this romantic idea about it. To be in a room all alone, in the studio all alone, and paint the whole day. But I realized after 3.5 years that I'm not a painter. So I was wandering through the art school. I was checking out photography, architecture, fashion. Nothing worked for me. But then I met in a class a teacher who was talking about books, who was reading from books and talking about content and form, and I fell in love with books. I thought, this is maybe what I can do. I love books. I love reading, and I never thought of designing books or making books. I've never thought of it, and this person made me realize that it's a profession. And then I thought, well, let's investigate making books, and then it started. So I went 6 years to art school, much longer than all other students, but because I changed discipline. So and I must say I'm very happy with this change, because now I'm a bookmaker, as Rem Koolhaas calls me. He doesn't say a book designer, but a bookmaker. And so I meet architects, I meet artists, I make books with artists, I make books also for brands like Chanel or Ferrari. But so for me, two worlds come together. So the art world and books. So for me, it's basically the ultimate work I'm doing 24/7. Inspiration source is art. Like somebody like Ellsworth Kelly or Agnes Martin, or in Holland we have Daan van Golde, who actually who spent many time in Japan, and his work is also, if you see it, very Japanese inspired. But Kelly and Daan van Golde are the for me who are always in my head as an inspiration source. And what I like about these artists, and especially Daan van Golde, he was the most autonomous artist I've known and I've met, and so for me, he's not only for his work is a great inspiration source, but also his attitude. So he really makes what he wants to make. He forgets people who want to buy his artworks or whatever. He's only doing what he wants to do. He's the pure artist, totally autonomous. He's doing the things he thinks he should do, and I'm really happy that I knew this person already since I'm 7. So as a small child, and when I was young, I even didn't know he was an artist. I'm not coming from an artistic environment, but Daan van Golde was always there, and I hope, but I don't think that I'm as autonomous as he, but because I'm a designer and I work with commissioners. So I'm commissioned to do something, but if I'm in a sort of doubt, or if I think, what shall I do? I always think of Daan van Golde and look at his wonderful and great work, and then I know, I have to stay autonomous, and don't read briefs from commissioners. They're always very boring and very predictable. And I also think if people come for me for a certain project, they expect maybe nowadays also something autonomous. And so basically, if I do my work, I'm totally free. And totally free, I mean totally free in my head, in my mind, in my way of working. And I think freedom is the most important ingredient to create and to actually make something new. People call me a book artist. I think I'm a book designer. And if I look at other books like from artists, I'm basically not so much interested in the book, but in the art. So if I see a book of Ellsworth Kelly, then I think, then I look at his art. I don't look at the book object. And I think if I make a book, there hopefully things come together. So the art of the artist and I create, because of my background, I also create a book. And I also think nowadays a book, why do you make books? Because whatever you show in a book, like former catalogs of Ellsworth Kelly could have been PDFs because they're normal catalogs. But what I think in 2020 is important, and in this century, that you show a book as also a physical object. If it can be small, it can be big, and for me, thinking of if I make a book for an artist now, if I design it, then I add another dimension to the book. So it's not just the catalog, but it's also it's the physical appearance, what I think is also important. So I make books which are definitely not PDFs, and I think that's the difference between the art books from the catalogs of the artists I love so much. They're catalogs. It's just a catalog. And I want to add this other dimension where the book is more a part of culture, because I also think that making books is a cultural act. It's not only to produce the work of an artist or a writer, but it is the whole thing. I see a book as a whole. It is something complete. It is the size, it's the thickness, it is the organization, the structure, the sequence. So I explore every detail of a book. And if I make a book for an artist, I try to work with all these elements. So not only to represent, but to create something new. And like the Sheila Hicks book, which is basically a very simple book, but I looked at her work carefully, and I spent a lot of time with Sheila Hicks. And because I also think making books is time consuming, because if you really want to make something new, I said you need freedom, but also you need trust, because trust creates responsibility. And if you get all this responsibility, then you, and if you collaborate with the artist in this case, then you can make something very specific. That's also what I think is important. You can create a book like this. I can never make with the same style a book for another artist. This is the book for Sheila Hicks, for nobody else. And that's basically how I approach books. So I'm really interested in the work and in the person, basically the work of this artist, and then create something new, and then it also becomes part of culture. It's not just the representation, or but it's it is genuinely something different and something specific, and that's, I think, what I'm aiming to. It doesn't always succeed, because Sheila Hicks is a very good example where it probably works, but of course it doesn't always work. But my attitude is to make a catalog for an artist that it's also for the artist something new. So my dream was to make a book for Ellsworth Kelly, to create a new book for him. And in the year that I got in contact with him, he died. So a pity. Yeah, I couldn't do it. Yeah, but I was really, and also with his widow, I was talking about how interesting it would be to make a book about the work of Ellsworth Kelly that you showed in a different way, instead of only the catalog, but give it another dimension. But who knows, I can do it in the future. And I'm still studying at the Vatican Library in Rome. And so there I've seen books, the oldest book I think in the world is 500, still existing, 500 years after Christ. And that's a book about Virgil. And if you see how that book is made, it could have been made today. It's so modern, it's very modern. Of course, it's a manuscript, but it's super modern in writing, typography, in size, in everything. And I think what happened, and that's also what I question, what happened to the book, because I think really bookmaking was on such a high standard and was so important. And what happened to the book? I think marketing and all this commercial stuff really made a downward statistic. And so making books became something, became a commodity. And of course, I also want the books that the books I make, that they sell and that there are big print runs, and that it's the most democratic medium ever. If a book like Sheila Hicks, nobody can maybe afford, or not many people can afford to buy a Sheila Hicks work, but you can buy the book. There's no excuse to not buy a $40 book. It's less than a dinner if you go out for dinner. But so for me, that making books is a very social and very democratic thing. And if you can make that book more than just that turning the pages, but that it has this extra, that it's this cultural and almost multiple thing. So a multiple is an art book in a print run. I think for me as a designer, that's why I make books. That content and art can go to a larger audience. I think that's for me. That's why I also spend a lot of time in making those books, because of I feel that the work of Sheila or Olafur, or you name any artist, can go to many people. That many people can enjoy the work, of art, and that you can. Yeah, it's a democratic medium. I think that's for me the crucial issue, and that's why I want to make it good. Not just, it's work and I'm as a routine making books. No, I make books. I make them physical. If I do Victor and Rolf, this is just a model. I really make the model. It's really hand glued and made. It's not made on a computer. No, it's made as a book, not as on a flat screen. A book is not a PDF, as I said before. It's not flat. A book has dimensions, and that's where also where I focus on the genuine, and that's what I also saw in the Vatican said before, that the book has has the size, the weight, the materiality, all is important. If you think of internet and the flux of internet, where everything can change every second, at some point, also the end of the last century, people said, well, are you still making books? It's not sustainable. But then I think I made this book in 20, when did I make it? Almost 30 years ago. And imagine a website from of 30 years ago that doesn't exist. It's not even that old, but information on a website changes all the time. But if you make a book, it is stable. It's there. It is unchangeable. And what at some point was was a disadvantage, that people said, oh, a book, it's also fixed and you cannot change anything, became now an advantage, because a book is something to revert to. So the information in this book is printed. So it's printed black and white, and because of that fact, the book became a reference. It's a reference for a specific subject. But if you think of internet, if you found something on internet, that reference is gone in maybe a day or a month or a year or 10 years. And I think there the book or printed matter plays an important role, that it is timeless. It's something which is there for a long time. And for me, studying at the Vatican Library, and of course there are the manuscripts and then the incunables, that this information made 600 years ago or 2 centuries ago is still available. I think that mindset, that the book is timeless, I think is really a big advantage. The book, if I show it like this, it has a white cover, because now that's also interesting. If I'm at the Vatican Library, no book has a cover design. Nothing. All books are blank, and sometimes they have a spine, and a very simple spine. And when I made this book, I must say, if you research a topic, then you always realize you don't know anything about it. I'm already making books for more than 30 years, but what do I know about it? Nothing. And but the way I made this book is pure intuitive, and because of my relation to the artist. This book is for me important, and the manifesto of the book, because this is how I see a book. Not only that you judge it by the cover, but judge it by what it is as a total, as the size, I love to work with the edges, and here it's very appropriate because the edges of the book are an image rhyme with the edges of the work of Sheila Hicks. The printing, the binding, so everything what I think is important for a book comes together in this book. So I call it my manifesto of the book. But on the other hand, the work of the artist is represented in the most extreme way. It's for the work of the artist. I chose a photographer who knows everything about textile, so he knew what to photograph. It's printed in the best way ever. So all the people, all my collaborators, like the printers, binders, lithographers, all did all the best work they could do. And I'm a control freak, so I control everything. I'm always at the printer, I'm always at the binder. And then you can make something like this, which looks extremely simple. I think it's an extremely simple book. So I was so busy with Yale Press to talk about the cover that I totally forgot to put the title on the book. So the book is called Weaving as Metaphor. I forgot to place the title. So it only had Sheila Hicks on the spine, but there's no way that I put weaving as metaphor. And that's, but in a way I think, so this is the title, but I forgot to put it on the cover. It's not there. But on the other hand, I think it's really great that it's not there, because now it became the Sheila Hicks book, because it only has her, it has her name and tiny on the front. And one of her works is embossed on the cover. So it's a graphical interpretation of the work, which I placed on the back, but on the front, it is, it's a totally white book. And then I was fired on this project, and then my commissioner said, well, my boss will fire me. Yale said we go bankrupt by producing this book, but nothing happened. Everybody gained. Sheila Hicks is more famous than ever in the age of 80-something. My commissioner in New York is still working at Bard Graduate Center. Yale Press is still doing very well. And because of this book, the Museum of Modern Art is collecting my work for the permanent collection. So we all 4 ladies who worked on this, we all gained from this project. So maybe that's also an important issue. I think you have to believe in what you're making. So a sort of stubbornness is also, I think, very important. If I was not stubborn, if I was acting like, making books is my work, then there was not this book. So it really needs stamina and belief in what you're making. Yeah. And it's of course very dangerous, because you can believe in something. So it can be a failure, and sometimes it's a success, but it can also be a failure. So you never know. So it's a risky thing. Me studying at the Vatican Library, because I was really interested, what is the book, what was the book, and what is the book in the future, and to go to the source where all books you can imagine, which are made in the world, are present there. If you're looking for a specific book, they have it, and always in the first print, and it's an amazing source. And so I will make a publication about what happened to the book, because all the things I'm doing, so leaving out page numbers, using no heading. So the way I work with books, I always say, oh, you're a disaster for bookmaking, because you don't use the rules of bookmaking. But for me, studying at the Vatican, I think that I'm more closer to what bookmaking is than all these people who do all these commercial books with all these conventions. Because when books are made in the beginning, there were no conventions, there were no page numbers, there were no headings. There were many things were not present. There were no paragraphs. There was nothing. But text was made as an image almost, and the text and image treatment in old books are super interesting, and that's what I'm finding. And so I will make a book about what happened to the book and what will happen to the book, and there I compare what I've seen in the Vatican and all the books I've researched in the Vatican, and I compare it to my own work, which of course is a bit tricky because the Vatican is the Vatican. But on the other hand, making books is my life, and also, what how can I explain it? That the things in the beginning of bookmaking, always in the beginning, if somebody is first, it's always the best. It always regresses over time. That's a given. It's hardly that it goes up, but if something is new, it's new at the very first moment. And so to research the whole idea of bookmaking in that very first moment, so even manuscripts, but then I also researched from the Gutenberg time, so 1455, so 600 years ago. So bookmaking is much older. I think it's important to research those moments, and then what I realized that a lot of the way how I approach books is not something new, it's something old. And now what I'm doing, people say it's experimental, but in a way it's not. It's reverting to maybe sometimes 1,000 years ago almost. This book is on the countryside, and the oldest book I found in the Vatican was the Virgil, and that's a poem on the countryside. And the very first printed pocketbook, this size, this is a pocketbook, is published and made by Aldus Manutius in Venice. And the content of that book is again the Virgil, again the poem on the countryside. So I said to Rem, we need to make the book on the countryside for the Guggenheim. We need to give it exact dimensions of this first printed pocketbook. So it's 16 by 10 centimeters. And it has exactly the same dimensions. Even the typography is a reference to old typography, to old how you treat text. Even the text is handwritten. But it's a font which is made by hand, but then of course digitalized, and it became a font. Can you see it? And so it has all these references to the past, but of course this can only be a book which is made today. It's an enormous print run, and but to make a catalog for a famous museum, the Guggenheim, which is so tiny, in the beginning I really have to fight for it, that the book is so small. But on the other hand, they sold maybe 30,000 books because it's a pocket book. It's a book you can take with you, and that's really nowadays, of course, important that you can. That it's almost like an iPhone, the size, which is interesting. So it's not so far away from the information on this thing, and now you have the book, yeah, almost on the size of the iPhone. Maybe I have 10 different copies of this, because they all have a different thickness. And what I like about this book, that it is really beautiful. It's basically a catalog of art of the 60s. And maybe you know, but I got from the Dutch government a big prize, the Johannes Vermeer prize. And then you get a lot of money, which you have to spend on a project. And I created a library on books from the 60s, from the 60s, but also books from 1500 and 1600. So I have a library with old books and 60s books, 2 moments in time where bookmaking was, I think, at the best. And also this book, I think, is really interesting because it shows, it represents an artist. And then I think Kelly is also, Yves Klein is also there. The way it's, they present an artist, and then on this weird paper, and everything is tipped in. I think it must be handwork, and I'm a bit against a book who has handwork, but I think this book is so extremely good and inspiring and beautiful. Yeah, it's one of the books that I really treasure. It's And I have to find Kelly, because Kelly is also in here. Solowit, also an artist I like very much, but Kelly, where is he? I think that's super nice. So you see the artist with the work, and then you can see the work itself. Yeah, so for me, when I discovered this book, maybe 15 years ago or something, all the time when I see this book, I buy it. Although I have them already so many times, but if I'm in a bookstore, antique bookstore, and I see it, I buy it. And so I have so many copies, and because all the copies have something different. I don't know what it exactly is, but and then there's another book of Kelly I also like very much. When I gave a lecture at the Walker Art Center in Minneapolis, if I go to an institution, I of course go to the library. And there I found this book, and before giving the lecture, I was in this library, and I was looking for maybe about 3 hours in this book. It's really a beautiful book. Maybe I can place it down. And here you can see that it says withdraw from the Walker Art Center. And because the librarian said that was really interesting, she saw that I was looking for hours at this book, that she said, you can take it. I said, what? No, she said, you can take it. I said, take it? So this is a book from the library. It's yours. And she kept on repeating, said, no, that's impossible, because, and she said, the book is waiting for you. It is there for you. I've never seen somebody studying a book like you did. So you need to take it with you. So I got it. I said, I didn't dare to take it. So, well, here's my address. If you still think tomorrow that I should get this book, you can send it to me. And then I will send you a book of I made. And that's what happened. So I sent her a book for the Walker Arts Library. I sent a book I made. But I think this is extremely beautiful. It's so this is a book on the art of Ellsworth Kelly. But even the cover, I think, is almost a piece of art. But how it's made is more than just a catalog. It's made with so much care for the work of Kelly. And yeah, how do you say that? For me, a book. This book has is a smaller print run and very special. But this is a normal made book. It's an industrial made book, but so wonderfully made. I think for me that's these two books are crucial. And why I became a book designer is because of this book. It's so my teacher at school, whose lesson I attended when I was wandering through the school. So I knew the work of Jan Wolkers. So he's a very famous writer, avant-garde writer in the Netherlands. And so at my high school, I did research on Jan Wolkers. I read all the books, but I never thought of the design of the books. And when I attended this lesson, this teacher was reading from the book. So he was not only showing, bright colors and great typography in Helvetica and whatever. And so this is made in 1967, so it's part of my library. And but there we talked about content and form. And he said that the content and the form are what a lot of literature books have just a cover, and it doesn't have so much to do with the inside. But here, content and form is one. And I got so intrigued by it that this teacher explained me the importance basically of design and of typography and bookmaking. that I thought, so I fell in love with this whole idea of making books. This is it. And then what for me is interesting, this book is designed and made by the poet and writer and teacher Jan Vermeulen. But my boyfriend is called Julius Vermeulen. So when I met Julius 33 years ago in The Hague, I said, and Vermeulen is a very common name in the Netherlands, but I said, are you related to Jan Vermeulen? And then he said, that's my father. So Julius, my boyfriend, his father made this. So I thought, whatever happens, I don't let this guy go. So I still keep him. I have him. I had another boyfriend at that time, but I thought, no, I need to have, I must live with Julius. So that's how Julius and I, yeah. So it has even a bigger meaning. So it began with the text. For me, it started with the content, and then the typography and how the book is made, and then on top of it, Julius. So that's great. This I found on the street in Japan, in Tokyo. I found it. It was just on the street, and I thought, this is amazing. It's crazy. And I took it, and then I was there with Julius and friends, and they said, "What, are you picking up a book from the street?" I said, "This is an amazing book. It's fantastic." And what I really like that it's stapled, and it's just this. And so I picked it up, and then so I have a collection of books which I think are amazing, from India, from China, from Japan. And then when I was asked to make a book for Hella, I made many. If I start making books, I make thousands of dummies. I make all the time dummies. And I showed her the Japanese book. And then she said, "Oh, I really love that." But I made the book, but the Japanese book, this is cut off, and here, but I kept the point. You see? So here the book is bound and cut, but this book is just a stack of paper, and then fold it, and if you fold it, you get this point. So this is even more simple. And this book, it's totally inspired by so the physical form, but the rest is I showed her work according to color. So it starts with white, and then if you turn the pages, you see the change of color. And in the center of the book, I have her biography. So yeah, but it's totally inspired. And one of my first books is this. Are the stamp books, and the stamp books have had also an obi. So this is, we call this binding of this book. Yuske, you know the book, huh? Stamp books. And so we call it Japanese binding because it has closed. It's like this. And I printed it also on the inside. I made it in 1987. And but then I thought, so it's Japanese binding, and so I wanted to have this around it because I thought it was Japanese. And but nobody told me that if you do an obi, it should be like this. So I made it like this to hold the books together. And when I was working with Kayoko Ota on Project Japan, she all the time said to me, no, I don't, no, she didn't say no, because you don't say no, but she said it's not good. But she didn't say what I did not good. She didn't say, you have to do it like this. So this is the real obi, huh? This is how you do it. This is wrong. And so I did it wrong all the time. And so in my latest booklet, The Architecture of the Book, I wrote a text on this whole obi thing. So when I make this book, I always add text. And I explain in this text somewhere here that I was always wrong, that the banderole, as we call it, the obi, inspired by Japanese books. And I say here, only recently I realized that I used it vertically. It should be horizontal and horizontally. So I am inspired, but sometimes it's wrong. Huh? That what I did is wrong, and that it should. So the Japanese version, of course, of the Project Japan is right. Iro. And this is a book on color, and I asked Kayoko, who is the editor of this book, to typeset it for me, because at that time in 2004 we didn't have Japanese fonts on our computer, and so she typeset it for me. And also here, for us, of course, Japanese characters are very abstract, and for me, color, the word kleur in Dutch is so, doesn't mean that much, but if you think of Iro or the German word Farbe, so language is important. I think that made for me a complete difference. Yeah, I got a complete different idea about color. Oh, that was Indiana. I thought it was Kelly. But anyway, this book is 5 centuries of art, and I made, how do you say that? Color DNAs out of it. But again, Japan an inspiration source.